Hi, I'm Michelle Dart, and I'm from the Tutoring and Technology Center, the TNT Center. I'm here with your SOS quick tip. Now, this quick tip is how to read a textbook, because as you've been in class for a couple of weeks now, you have discovered that reading a textbook is much different than reading something that you enjoy and you're not going to be graded on. So think of it as having bookends. Now, the first part is the introduction to your chapter. It will give you student objectives. By the end of the chapter, you should know this list of stuff that they're going to give you. Then you go to the conclusion, and it's going to match up. And that's a nice personal guide, because if I'm reading and I get to the end and the summary and I see things that don't look familiar, or, well, they talked about it, but I didn't pay much attention, but they're giving me more information, that tells me as a reader that I need to go back and reread. All right, now I just said that another key strategy, you need to read more than once. The first time you're going to read just to see the lay of the land, so to speak, just to see what is written. You're not going to delve too deeply into what is said. You just want to understand it. And then once you're done, go back. And that's when you're going to notice the different sized fonts. You're going to have a big font, which is like your main heading. And then you're going to have smaller fonts. And those are kind of like your details as you're writing an essay. It's easy to think about reading and writing. They are interconnected. And so it helps break it down from this big, large chunk to smaller chunks, to little bits. Strategy 2, look at it and chop it into small bits. Now, strategy 3 is it is an active process. So the second and multiple times that you're reading to study in your textbook, you're going to have to be actively engaged. So I have our comprehension tips here. Before reading, I had talked about that. You preview it, you see what's going on, the headings, the introductions. If there's special print, like if things are bolded or in italicized, that means, hey, this is important. You want to pay attention to this. Sometimes they'll have something called the sidebar. It's like a side square or rectangle. It's extra information that they want to make sure that you know. They're repeating it over and over again. So that is another hint. This is probably important information I need to know. And it will help as you connect from section to section. Part of this is before you read, you set some goals for yourself. Okay, first time, my goal is just to read, to understand. Second time, okay, I need to read to see what's important. And as you're reading, we're going into what's called activating schema. It's basically everything you know about everything in your life, your pre-existing experiences, your knowledge, what you've learned, beginning steps of how to work out a problem. All of these are tools that you will use as you read. Now, during reading, that's when you activate all that knowledge. And you predict, like you'll read something and go, well, I wonder why they're mentioning this. Is it important? Is it not important? I don't know. Let's just keep going and maybe I'll get that answer later. But you're thinking through it as you're reading. And this is when you can try and picture what is being said. You're trying to see, okay, can I relate to that? Do I understand what they're saying? Can I make the connections that the different processes they're explaining to me? And if you don't, then go back and reread. Look at the vocabulary. One of the biggest stumbling blocks Another big hint here, another big strategy. You don't know what a word means. Stop, either go on the internet and look up the dictionary meaning of it. If they have a glossary, look and see what that meaning is. Sometimes those are some of the words that are written on the side in the sidebar that I had mentioned. Part of it is if you don't understand what that word means, you're going to waste the entire reading in the back of your mind going, I wonder what it means. And maybe, if I keep reading, they'll tell me. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. And so you're focusing on what does that word mean, and you're really not paying attention to what they're telling you, what they want you to do with that information. So just stop, answer the question, and then go back, because then you're like, oh, I understand now, and you'll be able to relate, and it will make more sense to you. And during reading is when on our bookmark here it says annotate, where you mark text. You might want to write in the margins of the book. Some people like to write out like Cornell notes on a notebook pad. Some type it into their computer. Whatever you do. And remember, your notes are for you. As long as they make sense to you, they don't even have to be in a complete sentence. They could just be little phrases. And explain it as you understand it. Let's see. Okay, after reading, after you've read everything, you've looked at the introduction, you looked at the summary, you're like, okay, I understand that. They all connect well. Then that's a good time to continue your note taking. I have students that will at that time go back and rearrange their notes however works best for them. Some do outlines, some will record themselves and listen to the recording, others will create songs, poems, they'll find mnemonics on help them to memorize things. Whatever works for you. And this is at a good time, like when we have breakout rooms in Zoom, you talk about it. That's another major strategy is talk to somebody, talk to one of your classmates, talk to the professor. If you're not sure about something, do the text chat, send an email, but talk about it. And as you're talking, you're kind of thinking through it. It's kind of like thinking out loud. And it helps you to make those connections. Sometimes you have to write about it in a journal or take notes, or you've listened to something and you're like, okay, I'm not going to remember all of it per se, but let me summarize the steps in my own words. That way I understand. And how the biggest strategy on how you know if you understand it or not, if you can explain it to somebody who has not read the chapter, say a friend, a family member, and you can explain it well, then you got it. And that's what reading is all about, is to kind of work through the process and kind of reflect and figure out monitoring of yourself and what you've learned. And that's when you can find out, yeah, I got it, or, oh, something I'm not quite understanding it. Let me go back. But you'll know that one little chunk that you need to work on instead of focusing on the whole chapter. Because if you understand it and you can explain it to somebody, then you got it. If you need extra help, the Tutoring Technology Center is available for you. You have a link for BrainFuse. There's also the TNT website where there's a list of all of us and what we tutor and our emails. So reach out to us and we look forward to helping you with the semester. Good luck and go Tigers.